I have a friend. He is similar to you ideologically. He rejects Usuli thought, and he presented a series of hadith to me that suggests that eating the meat of Ahl Kitab is permissible. I wanted to ask you about this, if this is truly the case, or what the hadith
of Ahl
is.
Kitab, the meat?
Eating the meat of Ahl Kitab.
No. So he has seen some hadith, and there are hadith which forbid eating the meat of Ahl Kitab. So the majority of hadith forbid you eating meat, zabiha of Ahl Kitab, okay? So no, it's not permissible.
So you have the hadith citation that says that.
Yeah, the zabiha Ahl Kitab, there are many hadith. And in Al-Kafi and Wasail al-Shia, and they are clear that Shias are not allowed to eat zabiha of Ahl Kitab and zabiha of Nasibi, a person who is the enemy of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam.
I have a friend. He is similar to you ideologically. He rejects Usuli thought, and he presented a series of hadith to me that suggests that eating the meat of Ahl Kitab is permissible. I wanted to ask you about this, if this is truly the case, or what the hadith
of Ahl
is.
Kitab, the meat?
Eating the meat of Ahl Kitab.
No. So he has seen some hadith, and there are hadith which forbid eating the meat of Ahl Kitab. So the majority of hadith forbid you eating meat, zabiha of Ahl Kitab, okay? So no, it's not permissible.
So do you have the hadith citation that says that?
Yeah, the zabiha Ahl Kitab, there are many hadith. And in Al-Kafi and Wasail al-Shia, and they are clear that Shias are not allowed to eat zabiha of Ahl Kitab and zabiha of Nasibi, a person who is the enemy of Ahl Bayt alayhim salam.
Okay. And so I guess the follow-up question I have, Sheikh, is, so, this person identifies as an Akhbari. I don't know if you've ever formally identified yourself as an Akhbari, but I've seen how people who identify themselves as Akhbari, they bring upon themselves the interpretation of hadith when they might not be adequate for it.
So the thing is that there are many people, because they say we want to follow Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, and of course you have to follow Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, and there's no other option but to follow Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. And of course, not everybody's learned. So they cherry pick, or somebody has misled them. So they find out one hadith here and there, and they do not understand the background and the context, and they go sideways. So what I tell people, and so my opponents accuse me that I tell people go and read hadith and follow it. I don't say that to people. I say you have to learn hadith from ulama, scholars. So scholars, if they preach hadith and they teach hadith, and hadith, they have a context. Some hadith are on the grounds of taqiyya. Some hadith, there are few we do not know really what they mean, and some hadith are shadh. And Ahl Bayt alayhim salam in all these cases have told us what to do. If a hadith is shadh, you're not allowed to follow. If a hadith is stated on the grounds of taqiyya, then of course you have to leave it aside. And of course you always have to, in these ahadith that have opposing ahadith on the same topic, you have to follow that which is accepted, has always been practiced by majority of Shia, and that majority of Shia muhaddithin, and that's these principles all delivered to us by Ahl Bayt alayhim salam. So if a scholar sees this and explains this, there's nothing difficult about them that people will not understand. So you do not have to be a mujtahid to understand these. These are very simple things to understand. However, a scholar has to do that, and if a scholar doesn't do that, of course, then common folks, they take upon themselves to go read books of hadith. And a lot of time, books of hadith have not been translated properly. And a lot of times people cherry pick because something is convenient to them. So that is a problem. So what I tell people always, as Imam alayhi salam said, the 12th Imam alayhi salam in his tawqi, in his letter, وَأَمَّا الْحَوَادِثُ الْوَاقِدْ فَارْجِعُوا فِيهَا إِلَى رُوَاةِ حَدِيثِنَا, that it's incumbent upon Shia to take recourse to scholars of hadith, people who teach hadith. Of course, some hadith you can understand. I'm not saying that you can't follow any hadith. Of course, many hadith you can understand. But if you find it something difficult to understand, something that hits you here, puts a doubt in your heart, that perhaps I don't understand, verify that, ask that, and make sure that that you understand it fully. Yeah.
So if at some point, if you could make a video on what is halal and haram when it comes to food, because this is a big point of contention within the people who reject the Usuli thought. Because a lot of them, like you said, they've cherry-picked these hadith and they think, okay, well, this clearly says we can eat Ahl Kitab meat, so we can just eat wherever we want and we can eat wherever we'd like in the West. So, yeah, anything, if you could make a video on that topic sometime, that would be really
sure.
Amazing. I know you're making videos on a lot more. So another question I had to follow up regarding the hadith point. So, of course, you take the position that there has been change made to the Quran. So, oftentimes what we were taught growing up was that.
Okay, let me show you the hadith. You asked me to show you hadith on the Dhabaih. Okay, I'll show you a few. Sure. This is the book of Al-Kafi al-Sharif, volume number 6, published by Dar Kutub al-Islamiyah. Here, Kitab al-Dhabaih, the book of slaughtered animals. باب ذبائح أهل الكتاب, the chapter that pertains to the ذبيحة of أهل الكتاب, Christians and the Jewry, and we love them. سئل أبو عبد الله عليه السلام عن ذبيحة الذمي. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq عليه السلام والسلام was asked about the ذبيحة of a person who's either a Christian or a Jewish person who's living within the Muslims, and he pays the dhimmi tax. قال لا تأكله إن سمى وإن لم يسمى. Do not eat it, doesn't matter if he said Bismillah or didn't say Bismillah, does not make a difference. Do not eat it. Okay,
well, thank you.
And then إن الذبيحة بالاسم ولا يؤمن عليها إلا أهلها. Imam عليه الصلاة والسلام said ذبيحة depends upon saying Allah, and only Muslims could be trusted that they have said Allah or mentioned Allah or said Bismillah at the time of ذبيحة. سألته, one more hadith. Muhammad ibn Muslim says, I asked the fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, they are Christian Arabs. Shall we eat? Are we allowed to eat their animals slaughtered by them? فقال كان علي بن الحسين عليهما السلام ينهى عن ذبائحهم وصيدهم ومناكحتهم. He said, my father Ali ibn al-Husayn alayhi salam used to prohibit to eat from their ذبيحة. Yes, go ahead, brother. Now.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'll be sure to share that hadith with anyone who takes the position that no, our hadith is clear that you can eat from Ahl Kitab. So I'll definitely share that, and I appreciate you clearing that up. So I had another question concerning hadith, because for a lot of us growing up, we were taught that if you put a hadith next to the Quran and the Quran contradicts it, the hadith, throw it out, it's no good. But you obviously take the position that there has been change made to the Quran. What is your opinion on that issue? Do you think if a hadith contradicts the Quran that it's automatically void? And
there's contradiction, of course. We do not. I do not maintain, and Shias do not maintain, that there are Quran's words have been added. What we say is verses were removed, and those verses mostly pertain to Fadail of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and their imama, and also to the kufr of Sahaba. So there were sensitive political verses they removed. And what else was removed? We do not really know. Imam Ali comes with no. And the reason I say this is because the ahadith are numerous on this matter, not just numerous, beyond numeration, and not only Shia hadith, Umaris also. So the important thing is there's not one hadith that says Quran was preserved, Shia or Umari. There's not one. There's not one assertion from Sahabi, any Sahabi, even weak, in the Bukhari, Muslim, or Umari books that says Quran was preserved. There's nothing. There's no proof for that. And there's a lot of hadith say the verse went missing. So the answer is clear. So the only reason Shia scholars say Quran was not, nothing was changed is because even, I don't know, they don't have any proofs. Either they are too intimidated by Umaris. So they're intimidated because if they say, oh, we say this, then we'll be accused that we don't believe in Quran. Either that, or they're shortcoming in knowledge. And that's also quite prevalent in Shia ulama. And the Umaris, they don't know what to do really. There are so many contradictions in their madhab. And I don't know what amongst themselves what they say. I do know, but they don't have anything satisfactory to reply. So that's on the one hand. So now, if verses of Quran are not all the same in terms of their indication, and in terms of alluding to their meanings, some of them are clear cut, and some of them have several possible meanings or two possible meanings, or some of them very vague. So we do not understand the clear meaning. So the verses of Quran are not the same all the time. If you find a hadith that goes clear against the clear cut of Quran, explicit verse of Quran, of course that cannot be true. And that hadith also has to be clear cut with regard to its meaning. Because if this hadith is ambiguous, so it could have several meanings. Only that meaning which is against Quran, that's wrong. So you can't say the hadith is wrong. Only that which goes against the noble Quran. So then this hadith, we put it aside, such a hadith. But we all know, everybody knows, anybody who reads Quran would know that there are very few verses of the noble Quran that have such clear-cut meanings that are not subject to any other interpretation. And if you find a hadith that goes against that, that'll be very rare. That'll be very, very rare. And I've not found anything in Shia books, at least, that goes against Quran. So if you find something like that, of course, we are going to put that aside. However, the rest of Quran, that hadith, the verses have several meanings. So those, yeah, of course, even if hadith is clear cut, it's very expressive with regard to its meaning. Its meaning is clear. However, because the verse of the noble Quran, it could have several meanings, then you cannot abandon it because it's not been established yet that it goes against the noble Quran. Yeah.